What if the world is standing on the edge of something we've already seen before, but no one is willing to say it out loud? What if behind political speeches and global meetings, there is a fear so serious that even history itself feels like a warning? And the most disturbing part, what if the signs are already here, but we are choosing to ignore them? There are moments in history that leave scars so deep, the world promises never to repeat them. These moments become warnings for future generations, reminders of what happens when threats are ignored for too long. But sometimes, those same warnings start to feel less like history, and more like something slowly returning. Today, a similar sense of fear is building again. Not loudly, not clearly, but quietly, in statements, speeches, and growing tension between powerful nations. At the center of this fear is a warning that has been repeated again and again, a warning that suggests something dangerous may be developing behind the scenes. The concern is not just about politics. It is not just about power. It is about survival. When a leader openly says that a threat could reach the level of past global tragedies, it changes how people listen. It forces attention. It creates a pause. Because such comparisons are never made lightly, they are meant to send a message, not just to one country, but to the entire world. And yet, even with such strong words, there is confusion. Some people hear the warning and feel fear. Others hear the same words and feel doubt. They ask, is this a real danger? Or is it being presented in a way to create pressure? This is where things become unclear. On one side, there's a claim that a nation is moving closer to building something extremely dangerous, something that could change the balance of power completely. The idea of nuclear weapons is not new, but the fear around them has never truly disappeared. These weapons are not just tools of war. They represent destruction on a level that cannot be controlled once released. The thought that such power could fall into the wrong hands is enough to create global concern. But what makes the situation different is the language being used. Words like existential threat are not normal political phrases. They suggest something final, something that cannot be reversed. When such words are used, they are meant to show urgency, to say that waiting is not an option. And this is where the tension begins to rise. Because while one side is raising the alarm, the other side does not accept these claims in the same way. Instead, they push back. They deny. They argue that these warnings are exaggerated or even misleading. This creates a gap between what is being said and what is being believed. And in that gap, uncertainty grows. The world has seen this pattern before. Rising tension, strong statements, growing fear. And then, a moment where everything changes very quickly. That is why people are paying attention now. Not because they know exactly what will happen, but because they understand what could happen. There is also another layer to this situation, one that is not always spoken about directly. It is the emotional impact of history itself. When past tragedies are mentioned, they bring with them a weight that is impossible to ignore. They remind people of loss, suffering, and the cost of silence. So when such comparisons are made today, they are not just political tools. They are emotional triggers. They are meant to wake people up. But do they always reflect reality? That is the question no one can answer clearly. Because in global politics, truth is often mixed with strategy. Fear can be real, but it can also be used. And for someone watching from the outside, it becomes difficult to separate the two. What is real danger, and what is perception? This is exactly where the story becomes more complex, because while the warning continues to spread, the world itself does not react in one single way. Some countries take it seriously and begin to think about possible actions. Others choose to wait, to observe, to avoid making quick decisions. And this divided response only adds to the tension. It creates a situation where everyone is watching, but no one is fully acting. And history has shown us something very important about such moments. Waiting too long can have consequences. But acting too soon can also create new problems. So the world remains in a strange position, caught between fear and uncertainty. And as this continues, one thought slowly begins to form in the minds of many people. What if this is not just another political situation? What if this is the beginning of something much bigger? Because sometimes the most dangerous moments are not the ones where everything is clear. They are the ones where nothing is certain, but everything feels possible. It didn't begin as a quiet concern. It began as a statement that instantly shifted the mood. A warning that didn't just talk about risk, but about something far more serious. When Benjamin Netanyahu spoke, his words were not framed like a normal political disagreement. He didn't describe a distant possibility or slow-moving issue. Instead, he used language that felt urgent, heavy, and impossible to ignore. He pointed toward Iran and claimed that its leadership was moving in a direction that could lead to a disaster of unimaginable scale. Not just conflict, not just tension, but something that could threaten existence itself. And that one phrase changed everything. Because in global politics, leaders often speak carefully. They avoid extreme comparisons. They measure every word. But when someone breaks that pattern and uses strong historical references, it sends a signal. This is not being treated as a normal situation. This is being treated as a turning point. According to him, the concern is centered on one thing: the possibility of nuclear weapons, not just the idea of them, but the fear that they could be used in a way that cannot be stopped once it begins. Nuclear weapons are not like any other form of power. They don't just win wars, they erase cities, destroy generations, and leave behind damage that lasts for decades. The world has seen what even a single use can do. So when a leader suggests that such power could be aimed at his country, it creates a level of fear that goes beyond politics. It becomes personal. It becomes about survival. Netanyahu's message has been consistent over time. He has repeated again and again that allowing Iran to reach nuclear capability is not something that can be accepted. In his view, waiting or hoping for the best is not an option, because if the threat becomes real, it may already be too late to stop it. And this is where the intensity of his warning comes from. He is not just saying this could happen. He is saying, if we don't act, it will happen. That difference is powerful. It turns a possibility into something that feels almost certain. But here's where things start to become more complicated, because not everyone agrees with this level of certainty. There are experts, analysts, and even global leaders who look at the same situation and see something different. They don't deny that tensions exist, they don't ignore the risks, but they question whether the threat is being presented in the most extreme way possible. Some believe that such strong language can create fear that spreads quickly, not just among leaders, but among ordinary people watching from around the world, and fear has its own effect. It pushes countries to take stronger positions, it increases pressure for action, and sometimes it brings the world closer to conflict instead of away from it. So now, two different views exist at the same time. One side sees an urgent, growing danger that must be stopped before it reaches a point of no return. The other side sees a situation that is serious, but believes that fear-driven language could make things worse instead of better. And in between these two views, the world is trying to understand what is really happening. Another important detail is how long this issue has been building. This is not something new. Tension between Israel and Iran has existed for years. Both sides have made accusations. Both sides have expressed distrust. And over time, these tensions have slowly grown stronger. But what makes this moment different is the level of attention it is receiving. Because now the conversation is not just happening between two countries. It has become global. Major powers are watching closely. Decisions are being discussed behind closed doors, and every new statement is analyzed, repeated, and shared across the world within minutes. This creates a situation where words themselves become powerful. A single sentence can increase tension. A single warning can change how nations respond. A single comparison can bring history back into the present. And that is exactly what is happening now. Netanyahu's warning is not just about Iran. It is about how the world chooses to respond to potential threats. Do we act early, even if we are not completely sure? Or do we wait for clearer proof, even if that means taking a risk? There is no easy answer, because both choices carry consequences. Act too early, and you may create a conflict that could have been avoided. Wait too long, and you may face a situation that can no longer be controlled. This is the balance the world is struggling with right now. And as the struggle continues, one thing becomes clear. The warning has already done its job. It has forced attention. It has created debate. It has made people stop and think, but it has not provided certainty. Instead, it has opened a door to even bigger questions. Questions about truth, fear, and the line between caution and escalation. And most importantly, a question that still remains unanswered. Is this a real warning of something approaching, or the beginning of a narrative that could shape what happens next? What if the real danger isn't just the threat itself, but the confusion around it? Because right now, the world isn't reacting with one voice. It's split, not by borders, but by belief. Some people hear the warnings and feel a sense of urgency. To them, this is not politics. This is prevention. They believe that when a leader raises such a serious alarm, it should not be ignored. In their eyes, history has already taught one painful lesson. The cost of waiting can be far greater than the cost of acting early. They argue that threats don't appear suddenly. They grow quietly, step by step, until one day they become impossible to stop. And by then, it's too late for debates, too late for doubt, too late for second chances. For this group, the message is simple. If there is even a small chance that something dangerous is developing, it must be taken seriously. Not tomorrow, not later, now. But on the other side, there is a completely different way of seeing things. There are people who believe that fear can be just as powerful as facts, that strong words repeated again and again can slowly shape perception, even if the full picture is not clear. They don't deny that tensions exist, but they question how those tensions are being presented. They ask, is the threat being described based on solid reality, or is it being amplified to create pressure? Because in global politics, narratives matter. The way a story is told can influence how millions of people think. It can push governments toward action. It can justify decisions that might not be accepted otherwise. And sometimes it can turn uncertainty into something that feels like certainty. This is where doubt begins to grow. Not doubt about whether tensions exist, that much is clear, but doubt about how close the world really is to the edge. And this doubt creates a divide. On one side, urgency, fear, and the belief that action cannot wait. On the other side, caution, skepticism, and the belief that fear must be questioned. And both sides believe they are right. This is what makes the situation so complex, because it's not just about facts anymore, it's about interpretation. The same statement can be seen in two completely different ways. The same warning can feel either necessary or exaggerated. The same situation can look like a growing crisis or controlled tension. And when the world cannot agree on what it is seeing, decision-making becomes difficult. This is exactly where global powers step in. Countries around the world are watching closely, not just observing, but calculating. Every move, every statement, every reaction, all of it is being analyzed. Some nations choose to support the warning. They align themselves with the idea that the threat must be taken seriously. They begin to prepare, to discuss options, to think about what actions might be needed if the situation escalates. Others take a more careful approach. They don't rush. They don't react immediately. Instead, they look for more information, more clarity. They believe that acting without full understanding could create a problem bigger than the one they're trying to solve. And then there are those who stay silent, not because they don't care, but because they understand how sensitive the situation is. One wrong statement could increase tension. One strong opinion could push things in a direction no one wants. So they wait. They observe. They stay quiet. But even silence has meaning. Because when the world goes quiet, it often means something important is being considered behind the scenes. And this is where another layer of the story begins to appear. The layer we don't see. Diplomatic talks, private meetings, hidden negotiations. Conversations that never reach the public but play a huge role in shaping what happens next. This is the part of global politics that remains invisible, yet powerful. While the public debates and questions, leaders are making decisions in rooms far away from cameras. They are weighing risks, exploring options, and trying to find a path that avoids disaster. But even they face the same problem: uncertainty. No one knows exactly what the future holds. No one can say with complete confidence what is real, what is possible, and what is being misunderstood. And in this uncertainty, pressure builds. Because time does not stop. Situations evolve, tensions increase, and the window for making the right decision slowly becomes smaller. This is what makes the present moment so critical, not because something has already happened, but because something could happen. And when the world reaches a point where possibility feels as heavy as reality, every choice becomes more important. Every delay becomes more risky. Every action becomes more impactful. So now, the question is no longer just about the threat itself. It is about how the world chooses to respond to that threat. Will fear drive decisions? Will caution slow things down? Or will the truth, whatever it may be, finally become clear? Because until that clarity comes, one thing remains certain. The divide will continue. And in that divide, the future is being shaped. And what if the most dangerous part of all this is that no one truly knows where this is going? Not the leaders, not the experts, not even the people making the loudest warnings. Because right now, the world is not facing a clear event. It is facing a possibility. And sometimes a possibility can be more powerful than reality itself. Everything we've seen so far, the warnings, the debates, the silence, the tension, all of it leads to one place: uncertainty. A kind of uncertainty that doesn't give answers, only more questions. What if the threat is real but still underestimated? What if it is being exaggerated but still taken too seriously? What if both sides believe they are protecting themselves but are actually moving closer to conflict? These are not simple questions. And that is exactly why they are so dangerous. Because when answers are unclear, decisions become harder. And when decisions become harder, mistakes become more likely. History has shown this again and again. Moments like these, quiet on the surface but heavy underneath, are often the moments that define what comes next. Not because something has already happened, but because the world is deciding how to respond before anything happens. This is where the real turning point exists, not in action, but in choice. The choice to act early or wait longer. The choice to trust the warning or question it. The choice to increase pressure or reduce it. And every choice carries a cost. Act too soon, and you risk creating a crisis that may not have been unavoidable. Wait too long, and you risk facing a situation that can no longer be controlled. There is no perfect timing. There is no guaranteed safe path. And that is what makes this moment so different from ordinary political tension. Because this is not just about strategy anymore. It is about consequences that could last for generations. At the same time, the world is more connected than ever before. News spreads instantly, reactions happen in seconds, and public opinion can shift faster than ever. This creates pressure not only on governments, but on people. Everyone is watching. Everyone is forming opinions. Everyone is trying to understand what is real and what is being shaped. But the truth is, not everything is visible. Behind every public statement, there are private decisions. Behind every warning, there may be information that is not fully shared. And behind every silence, there may be discussions happening that the world will never hear. This hidden layer is where the future is often decided. And yet, for those watching from the outside, it feels like standing in the dark, trying to understand a situation where only parts of the picture are visible. That is why the feeling of tension continues to grow, not because of what is known, but because of what is unknown. And in that unknown, one idea keeps returning again and again. What if history is not something behind us, but something slowly moving toward us? It's not a statement. It's not a confirmed reality. It's a question that refuses to go away. Because every warning, every debate, every silence seems to point back to it. Is this just another moment of political pressure? Or the early signs of something much bigger? No one can answer that with certainty, not yet. But one thing is clear. The world is watching more closely than ever before. Every move matters. Every word matters. And every decision made now could shape what happens next. And maybe that is the most important part of all this. Not the fear, not the disagreement, not even the warning itself, but the awareness. Because history has taught one simple lesson. The moments that change everything don't always look dangerous at the start. Sometimes they look uncertain, sometimes they look confusing, and sometimes they look exactly like now.